Okay, so we're getting ready to make the crust. We're going to do that first. I like to use the organic flour. So this is some organic all-purpose Arrowhead Mills, and this is the best butter to use. It comes from Ireland and from cows that graze on the grass. And anyway, we're going to start out. We're going to put a cup of flour in that bowl. We're going to get our salt. Calls for a half a teaspoon of salt. And then let's kind of stir that up. And then it calls for 6 tablespoons of butter. You notice this butter is going to be a lot more yellow than just regular butter because this butter is from cows who graze on grass, and their butter is much better for you, and it's yellow. So we're going to cut off about 2 tablespoons. So we'll have, but you actually start out with 4, so that would be a half a stick because the stick has 8. So we're going to start out right here with this, and then cut it in. And I love these kind of pastry cutters to blend the butter into the flour. So much better than the new stuff. You find these at antique shops or on eBay or Etsy. They knew how to make stuff back then. And you just get going with it.
They call that cutting it in, right?
Cutting in the flour.
Mm-hmm. I never liked doing this when I was a little girl. She seemed like she always gave me this job.
When I started out,
my little hands were hard.
I didn't have one of these pastry cutters, and I used 2 knives for years until I got one of these, and I've got more than one now. And when you buy one, try to buy one where they're evenly spaced, so that when it cuts, it'll do a better job for you. And you just keep working with it.
You keep on doing that until it gets real, real fine.
Mm-hmm. And then once it gets fine, you add the other 2 tablespoons, which makes a total of 6 tablespoons of butter. Okay, so I just got through putting in the other 2 tablespoons of butter. And I kind of cut them in first with a knife to where it makes it easier for the pastry blender.
How many do total?
6.
6.
You start out with 4. Now this recipe comes out of a very old book. I think it's a Westinghouse stove cookbook, or it might be an old Sunbeam. I absolutely wore the book out. It's one of those little paperback books that used to come with appliances. Yeah. So I'm going to work it in. Now, when you work this part in, you don't cut it in till it's fine. You cut it in until the pieces are about the size of a pea. Okay, so we're all ready now to see. It looks about like that. Now we're going to add 1 1/2 to 2 tablespoons of water.
And this is ice water.
Yes, I've got ice in this water. It's supposed to be cold because you don't want your butter to start melting. And you just kind of put it, you use it very sparingly as you're working it in. You don't want it all to be in one spot, because I think too much water could make it tough. What I do, I just do About 2.
Okay.
2 tablespoons. And if it seems like it needs just a little bit more, it's no hurt to add a little bit more. I'm just going to add a little bit more to the real dry area here. Okay. And then we're going to let it rest for about 15 minutes. That'll give the moisture time to absorb all the way through. So what I'm doing here is I'm just getting it all worked in together, so all this moisture and the, there's a little piece of ice, and all this butter will be able to just blend together. Let it rest for about 15 minutes. And we'll cover it right now. So, okay, so when we went in there and rested, let this take a little break for about 15 minutes. This is just a paper towel. I wet it and then I wrung it out and just let it sit on top. Now we're ready to do about 2 tablespoons of flour on this board here. Roll it out. It's going to be dry and flaky, but that means it's going to be flaky when you eat it.
That sounds good.
So I'm just kind of making a little circle with it. And I do both sides like that so it won't start sticking. Now, start from the center and work out.
Just keep on working and working.
It takes a little while, but you don't want to get in a hurry. I don't like to get in a hurry. I like to take my time.
Yeah.
Enjoy what I do. I usually don't use the ends. I just do it from the center.
When we was little, she would bake those ends off on a cookie sheet and let us eat them. Oh, they were so good. We'd fight over them. When you make them with butter instead of oil, it just tastes so much better.
Especially that butter from Ireland. So before I pick it up to put into the pan, I just take a spatula and just kind of loosen it to make sure. This is an old spatula, real thin. Best kind. Okay, so I'll just fold it over like that. Fold it like that. Put the center of it right there in the middle.
Bring that pan over here, Mama, so we can see. Okay.
Okay, see how I folded it into a fourth, and then I open it up. And then I start positioning it, and if you have too much hanging over and need a little more in another spot, just...
And you don't need to grease the pan or anything because of the butter.
No. We just get it all worked in there nice and neat.
This is an extra deep dish.
Yes.
So she rolled it maybe a little thinner than what you would need to. But we like this particular pie pan.
I like this pie plate because it's very deep, and
Holds a lot of filling.
I like my fillings to be very deep. I don't like a little narrow filling. I like it to be as tall as the meringue. Kind of like the icing on a cake, as tall as the cake. So then, see, we'll start working it in like this. Go all the way around. And if you have quite a bit hanging off, well, you can just take a little off. So the way I learned a long time ago how to decorate my crust is to take 2 fingers like this and take this finger and just kind of roll it. Press down as you're doing it. Press down. You just push these up against it. That's what, I think it was an old Better Homes and Garden, or it might have been an old Pillsbury cookbook. And that's the way I've always done it. Okay, now we're gonna not forget to do this part. Punch holes. This is all gonna be filled with a bunch of good filling. So that, don't worry about it, don't have to be perfect. Then all this little part here, we'll just cook it.
Put it on
sample it later. Yeah, we'll put it on this little plate.
Yeah. All right, we'll put it in the oven, and the oven is at 400.
It really should be at 425, but you drop it 25 degrees for glass.
Okay, for how long?
Oh, just until it's starting to get brown.
Okay.
You don't want to, it won't take long, about 8 minutes. I'm going to take this out. And when you're using glass especially, when you take it out, it's still browning. You see?
Perfect.
And I did turn it around one time in there just so that one side wouldn't get browner than the other. Okay, so we're going to put it over here.
Oh, we dropped a little bit off.
Yeah, it's very, very light and flaky.
That's okay. That's just part of being homemade. But look how pretty that is. And it tastes delicious. And that's how you make the crust.